All right, so we're going to create a new project. We want to call this Store Lab, right? What classes were we going to have? Okay, so item, store, and then tester class. I'm going to put my main method in here right away. Because I think it's good practice. Okay. So I'm going to go back here to my lab and I'm going to copy the item class that I have so kindly given you and put that in my item here. Same thing with my store. Okay, so we can see a store holds an array of items, okay? I added a, oh, I actually didn't want that. I want these here. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to look at my store class and I can see that my constructor is already made for me. I have an int for an ID number for whatever the, like, I don't know, the number of the thing is. An integer for how much inventory is left, and a string for the name, okay? So here are some methods that I want to fill. Some of these are easy, right? Like the getter methods. What am I going to say here? What happened here? Get ID. Pretty easy. What am I going to write? Return what? Return what? My ID. Done. Next one. Get inventory. What am I going to write? Return my for inventory. Okay. Now, I should probably have something that says get name, right? That was silly. Public string get name. And so we'll return my name. So now all of our getter methods are complete. Let's go back here and look at this. The compare to and the equals methods should compare the items by the inventory. The toString should list an item's name, ID number, and inventory with tab spaces in between each one. So would you like to do compare to equals or toString first? Okay, toString. So item's name, ID number, and inventory with tabs between each one. So let's fill in our toString. So our toString returns a string, so it's returning. What this enables you to do is instead of printing out the address or the reference of where this is located, it will print out the information that is actually useful to us, okay? So we are going to print out the name plus we want it's called my name. My name plus a tab plus my ID plus tab plus my in. I think I did not make this capital. There we go. So that's it. So when we print out the name, the store, it'll print out, or I'm sorry, when you print out the item, it'll print out the name of the item, the ID, and the inventory. Are we good with this so far? Okay, so it said compare and equals compares based on what? The compare to and the equals methods should compare the items by what? Inventory, okay? So, how do I do that? What do I want to do? Remember, I only really care about whether or not it's going to give me negative, 0, or positive. So what's the easiest way to do that? How do I get a positive value? Yep. What's greater than 0? The value has to be greater than 0. We're comparing two things, right? We're comparing the inventory of two things. Are they ints, first of all? Inventory? Is it an int? Yeah, right? So it makes it easy for us. Okay, so what do we want to return? How do we compare two inventories? What do? What if one has 5 and the other one has 4? How do we know? How do we compare them? Generally speaking. In my mind, what am I saying? One of them has what? One more. When I say I'm comparing one more, what did you do in your mind? You subtract. Okay, so you subtract the 2. In this case, what do we want to come first? The object we're on or the other object? Because you see it has to take in other, right? So we want to compare, when we use compare to for strings, what do we compare? The object before or this object or the other object first? This comes first, right? So we say this dot my end minus, and I'm going to cast this object to a item to make sure that it is an item. So what's going on here is we're using compare to because there's a compare to method for all objects. We're using that here. So we have to cast this. So we're forcing it to be an item. We're saying you have to be an item. Okay. And we want to say my object dot what? Okay. Or other object. Sorry. It doesn't want to use this. So let's use get my, well, let's do this. Let's see if this will help. Since we're in the same class, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But yeah, it should see this as an item because we are casting it as an item. But, oh, see, it's a redundant. Let's do this. I'm going to cheat for a second just to see what's going on. When I changed that to, see, when I changed that, it liked it. But when I changed this to object, which is what it should be, This should have the ability to be casted in as an item, and you should be able to call that on it. I am going to leave this for now. Because it should be able to call this. See if my brackets are correct. I think so. Can anyone else see what the problem with that should be? Or is? It shouldn't be static anyway. Because we want to compare. If it was static, it would be a class variable. We want them both to have their own inventory. I don't know. We can try that. If we put this like that. Yep. That was the bingo. That was the answer. Good job. So he's saying it was trying to call this before we casted it. So in order to force the cast to come first, we put parentheses around the cast. So it forces the computer to cast the object as an item and then get the inventory. I assume you could even use my inv since we're inside, but let's just leave it as it is. Good answer. And problem solving. So now that we've done this, dot equals should be easy. What does it return? Everybody? It returns what? True or false, right? So we want it to return. So if this dot what? What are we comparing again? The inventory, same thing. My in equals what? We're going to cast this other object as an item first. So we'll say item other object dot get in. Can we just return this thing? What does an if statement give us? What does an if statement give us? Well, actually, we don't have to use an if statement. What does this thing give us with the equals here? A true or a false. So can we just say return that and call it a day? Because we're saying return whether or not this thing is equal. Correct? Do we have any questions so far? Because this is the item class. Yeah.
Saying that the get IDs is
okay. Do you have these parentheses on the outside? Casting like that and that? Let me take a peek at it after then, but in general, do we have questions about this? Okay. So when you have a store, what you're going to do for the store, what do we want the toString for the store to be? What do you guys think? Display store should display the items in one line each. Starting with their what? Names, then their ID numbers, and their inventory. What is cool about this? Yeah. We already created our toString for this. So I'm going to have you guys work on this class at home. We've done the item class, so that should help you quite a bit.